we are holding at Yerushalmi Maasrot. Okay? Now, you do know that Tvua of Eretz Yisrael and the fruits of Eretz Yisrael, you have to separate Trumas and Maasrot. First of all, there's Truma Gedola, given to the Cohen. After that, a tenth of what's left is Maser Rishon, which is given to the Levi. After Maser Rishon, you separate a tenth of what's left, either Maser Sheni or Maser Ani, depending on what year it is. Of course, the Levi has to give his own Trumas Maser from his Maser. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. So, the Issa Tevel is learned from the Pasuk, it says, Le'echallo is country b'nei Yisrael. According to most Rishonim, it's Dagan, Tirosh, v'Yitzhar, which is grain, wine, and oil, which are in the Torah, and everything else is rabbinical, right? There are discussions. There are some Rishonim who hold that all fruits of the tree, and even pulses as well, and seeds are chayv trumas and maasrot min Torah, but only vegetables is only drabanan, and that's the view of Reb Nissim Gaon as well. Okay. You need various conditions to be high of trumas and maasrot. You've got to have, it's got to be a food, it's got to be nishma that's guarded, as opposed to a hefka area, and it's got to grow from the land, right? It's fruit that grows from the land, as opposed to your mushrooms and so on that get growth from the air and so on. Hydroponics is a question. Yeah. There's no Issa Tevel on fruit until it's gone through a process of Gemar Malacha. It's finished in the field, it's been brought into the house. Right? With Rabbanan, you can't even eat Achilas Keva. You can't eat even fruit that's not gone through this completion process. You can have it on a temporary eating stage. Okay? Now, Gemar Malacha, it depends on the various fruits, have various stages, what's considered Gemar Malacha. Right, different fruit of different levels, and it depends on, some of the fruit might have reached that stage in the field, and it doesn't mean the others have reached that stage. And the kvias, the chalos of tevel on the fruits is always called kvias l'maseh. That's when it's forbidden, even achilas arai. Okay, what else have we got? Yeah, so Shabbos is one of these things that's kovea l'maseh. We'll see what that is in due course. Chatzah, which is guarded, is also kvias l'maseh, and we spoke about achilas arai, achilas keva. There are things which are potter from maasrot, right? Hefka produce, hekdesh produce, peres of a goy, lakuach. So that's somewhere it's being bought. One who sells his fruit to others is potter, the seller and the buyer from trumas and maasrot. We'll come on to that. The minatoradin. The minatoradin is when you eat your fruit from your field, right? But if you sell it to others, you are potter and the buyer is potter. Minatora. Okay? The Rishonim discussed that. Everyone agrees the Torah is only Minatora Rabbanan, there's still a rabbinical obligation. Nowadays, it's Machlekes Tanaim Amoraim. Whether the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael is Chal as far as the mitzvah is dependent on the land. Nowadays, some say the Kedusha was there, Shusha Benon is still there. We'll come on to that in due course. So that's your brief introduction to Maasrot. Okay, are we ready? So the chiyuv to separate the 5 matanas from the produce of Eretz Yisrael, you've got Truma Gedola, as we said, is given to the Cohen. And from that, and then of course Truma Gedola, you might be generous, you'll give 1 in 40, 1 in 50, or 1 in 60. Okay? Maser Rishon is a tenth of what's left, that's given to the Levi. From that, the Levi has to separate a tenth of what he gets as Trumas Maser. Maser Sheni is the produce remained after Truma Gedola Maser Rishon. You separate in year 1, 2, 4, and 5, and you take it to Yerushalmi to eat there to redeem with money, and to take the money to Yerushalmi. Maser Ani is year 3 and year 6, instead of Maser Sheni, that's given to the poor. Okay? And if produce needs one of these things being taken, and you haven't taken it, then it's called Tevel, and you can't eat it. Now, Klal Amr b'Maasrot. So they said a general rule in Maasrot. Kol shu eichal, if it's a food that people eat, then nishma, and it has an owner who guards it. V'gidula min haaretz, and it grows on the ground. Chayav b'Maasrot, there is a Maaseh obligation. They also said it was fitting to eat when it was first growing, or at the end, right? At the end of the process, like some vegetables and so on. We'll see according to those who use the vegetables. Even though you leave it in the ground, for it to grow a bit more, you are chayav maasrot whenever you cut it. Katan begadol, whether you cut it when it's small or you cut it after it grew bigger. Anything which is not fitting, it's not really fitting to be eaten when it first grows, but later on it will be fitting to eat. Then there's no mice obligation until it reaches that stage that it is fitting to eat. Okay. Klal Amru. Do you want one of these texts? No? Klal Amru. They said in Maasrot. So we say like this: anything which is a food and is guarded and grows from the ground is chayav maasrot. Now we bring a brisa now, which looks at source from a pasuk for this klal. Okay, so let's see. Actually, there's some problems with the brisa. Some changed the wording. Let's see. It says, "Aser to aser, it's called tzavua zarecha. You shall surely take maser on all your produce, which comes out in the year every year." And the Torah said just aser to aser. Everything has maser obligations. Talmud Loma says no. It's called tzavua zarecha. The produce of your seeds is liable. Not everything. Maybe only grain and not pulses, not fruits. That which comes out of the field, shana shana. So riba, so we're including other things that grow from the field, right? They are also obligated. Okay. Now, the riba. If that's the case, that we're including shazir and igina, why do we not include then other garden seeds, which are not eaten? They also grow from the field. So he says, it says tavua zaracha, right, which implies grain. It says which comes out from the field every year, which implies anything that grows from the field. Okay, so how do you understand both of them? So you take from between davash or echel and ishma, something which is food that humans eat and is guarded, it grows from the ground. These are the things which are chayav b'maaseh. Okay? Now, is to b'mishmeina min harav. Some wanted to learn this klal from the following. We learned in the Brisa. This is aser to aser klal. That's the general rule, implying everything is obligated in maaseh. It's called tzavua zaracha. Perhaps that's a specific, maybe only grain. Then it says, and klal uprat, when you have general followed by specific, ein klal mashum prat. It means just the specific. So Eli Ella Tavua. So that's all very well with grain. But kid is benign. How do you know various pulses might also be obligated? So that's why it says V'chol Masaharetz. And all the mass of the land to include kidneys. And the pasuk goes on with Zera Haaretz, right? From the seeds of the land, the Rabbi Zera Shum Shichlaim V'gar Ger. So it's coming to include seeds of garlic, Shichlaim. Then they sometimes translate it as cress of some kind. The garga, they don't say what garga is. Huh? Rocket, okay. So some sort of rocket. There we are. So these sort of grasses as well should be included. Zera haaretz. That's the guess of Tosus and Rosh Hashanah. And it's now Zera Shum, this garlic seed, is considered what we eat. So it should be chayav maaseh anyway. Otherwise it shouldn't be chayav maaseh, so it must be something that people eat. Okay. Some say it's mashma from the Rambam that Zera Shum is not eaten, but some learn the Rambam slightly differently. Okay. Now, maybe shani marba zera loifa elyon. Now maybe I should include the seed of, now loif is like some of the onion family. I don't have a name for it.
Arum.
Arum?
Yeah.
Arum. A-R-U-M.
Yeah.
So there we are. Maybe it's that. So Zera Loifa Elyon, this sort of wildish arum, maybe they're eaten, but maybe their seeds are not eaten, their seeds are potter. So maybe I should include the seeds of this thing. But Zera Kareshin, which again are sort of leeks and the hops family, V'zera b'tzalim, the seed of onion, zera lefes, the turnip seeds, v'shaz zera negina, she'ena echalin, other garden seeds which are not eaten. Talmud learns why it says mizera ha'aretz. The mizera ha'aretz is going to be part of the zera ha'aretz, not all of it. But like kol zera ha'aretz, not all seeds, there are seeds which are not eaten. Now then the Brisa continues. Pri ha'etz, the rabbis call peres ha'elan, all the fruits of the tree. Maybe I'm going to include these carobs and charuve geroira. These are the various types of carobs from these places. Now they're not really fitting to eat. Talmud Levi says mipri ha'etz. Mipri means some of it, but not all of it. Like kol peres ha'elan, not every fruit of the tree. So not these carobs, which are not really fitting to eat. Now Yeraka is minayin. What about vegetables? They're also Chaim Maasrot. Esti ben Yehuda, Maasrot liYerakos. The Maasrot for vegetables, midivrein, is Rabbanon, and it has no source in the pasuk. So this brisa, however, does include various other things, right? Priya eights, various other fruits. So this is not like where we've said, the other Mepharshim say Degan chati roshcha v'itzarecha, which is wine and oil, and perhaps grapes and olives, right? But not other fruit. It's not, according to the other drushes, other fruits are not included in the Torah din of Maasrot. This brisa, however, does seem to include other things. Other fruits is included in the Maasrot obligation. Okay? We bring here, most Rishonim hold, the Chiyuv on Torah is Dagon, Tirosh, V'Yitzah, which is grain, olives, and oil, and grapes and wine. And these drushes we're bringing here is asmachtas, right? It's not really. The Ramban writes, even grapes and olives are not Chaim in Torah until you make wine or oil. They're called Tirosh V'Yitzah. The Ramban says the Chiyuv of the Torah Tirosh V'Yitzah includes olives and grapes because they're there to make wine and oil from them. Alright? Rashi learns that Tirosh V'Yitzah includes wine and oil only, but grapes and olives are still Chaim Maasrot in the Torah because they're included in Tavua. Okay. Let's carry on. So, where are we? Yerakas b'nayin, is ben Yehuda, Maasrot Yerakas b'divrei. Okay, fine. We learned in our Mishnah, v'nishma. Something which is guarded as a chiyuv Maasrot, as opposed to hefker. If a person made hefker kama, his stack, and then he acquired it, so it's still connected to the ground. Then he separated truma after the gemar malacha, and he made a kri. So he's gone through this gemar malacha process, and he separated truma. I raised the truma, it is truma. But hefker shibalin, if he made it hefker when it had been cut, and then he reacquired it. Then he separates truma. It's hefker, it's not truma. Ma ben kama shibalin. What's the difference if he has made hefker kama? It doesn't take away the Maasrot obligation. If you make it hefker when it's been cut for one period of time, it removes the Maasrot obligation. The Gemara says kama actually hefkira when it's still connected to the ground before you made it hefker. Of hivrish men truma. If you take truma in such a stage while it's still growing, ain't no truma. It doesn't help, right? If you want to separate truma, it doesn't work. So the hefker that you made a hefker didn't really remove any chiyuv that there was there, and therefore it doesn't stop the chiyuv from being chal when later on when you end up cutting it. Whereas shibalin, when it's been cut, actually if kiran, but even before you made a hefker, ava v'hivish made a truma, I raised a truma. If you made it truma then, all right, when it's been cut, it would be truma before you made a hefker, but it would be truma if it's been cut, right? Therefore, the hefker for one period of time removes the zika for any hefker which is already chal. And once it's removed, any chiyuv which has already had, the chiyuv doesn't come back later on at all. After hektish came, we hektish, the din should be the same as hefker. If you make something hektish, right, while it's still growing on the ground, and you redeem it while it's still growing on the ground, you're Chaim Maasrot when you end up cutting it. If you made it hektish when it was cut, and then you redeemed it, then it's potter from Maasrot. However, the following Chachamim argue on what Rav Chidna said in the name of Rav Chizda, right? The Chachamim we're going to see now, they hold hefker for a period of time when it's betalosh is potter, but not hektish, and not like Rav Chidna and Rav Chizda who said they're the same. Rav Yochanan Shem Rav Yanai, he says there's a Levi. The Levi will come to take his maaseh, he has no share with you, but what you are ownership of, and he hasn't got, Ve'eloi ad Chaim Litana, you have to give him. That's when you give him Meiser from stuff that you have and he hasn't got. Yotza leket, as opposed to the ability to cut gleanings in the field, Yotza leket, Yotcha v'yoda shomimba. You've got an equal opportunity as he has. You don't have to give Maaser to the Levi from that. He could get that himself. He leket, he shikha, he peah, he hefka. And they have all the same din. So just like leket is excluded from any Meiser obligation, so also shikha, peah, hefka is all excluded from any Meiser obligation because the Levi has the same ability to go and get it. Okay. Amar Rav Yochanan. Amar Rav Yochanan. Havaroi Makshe. The Bnei Yeshiva would ask on Rav Yanai, Harei Hekdesh, Harei Ein Yadcha V'Yadai Shavin. You're not the same as him, as the Levi, because is Mukdash L'Gavaya, Levi's got no right in it, and yet we still say, K'misha Yadcha V'Yadai Shavin, but it's like you and him are the same, right? It's got the din, Yadcha V'Yadai Shavin is positive from Maaser, right? So you see that the source of Tur Hefka is not from a Ba'a Levi, like Rav Yanai said, because then the Hekdesh wouldn't have needed to be Potter, because the truth is you don't have the same hand. Basically, there must be some other source to Pater Hefka, which applies to Hekdesh as well. So he said, what are we talking about here? Where they wanted to say that according to Rosh Rav Yanai, there should be a difference between Hefka and Hekdesh. Look, if he's gone through that process that is now complete, Yeshus Hefka, Yeshus Hekdesh, and it was like smoothing out the pile, and we're going to go after the threshing, and that's really been done. If they're both Patur, he says, well, Amar Torah, the Torah says, Reishis Degoncha is your grain, right? Your miruach, your stacking up of the pile is in your domain, but Shel Hefka, and not when it's done with Hefka. It's not when it's Rishus Hefka, it's Patur. And also Reishis Degoncha, it's going to be your grain, but Shel Hekdesh, and not as opposed to Hekdesh. So miruach, if the stacking and the smoothing was done while it belongs to Hekdesh, you're Patur. So we'd never bring the Drosh of our Levi on such a thing. What are we talking about? So you made hefka these stalks, and then you acquired it before they've been smoothed out. So since there was no maruach when it was hefka, we don't exempt him from the word degancha, and therefore Rabbi Yanai said he's part of because of Mabah Levi. And then you don't have to ask the Bnei Yeshiva's question, you didn't need to be hekdesh to be patur. Because here it's behefka patur and behekdesh chayev. In this situation, if it was hefka, it's patur, but as far as hekdesh is concerned, it would be a chiyuv ma'asros in such a case. Behefka patur, we're explaining now. Behefka patur, if it was a hefka stage, right? So what's the case? You made a hefka and then you acquired it again, okay? Before it's gone through that process of miruach. So this, now let's see. So hefka patur, if it goes through a stage of hefka, it's patur. Why? Levi will come. He's got no share with you. That which you have ownership, and he hasn't got. You have to give him masa. Yatsa hefka, as opposed to hefka, which everyone's got equal rights. Everyone's got the same rights. But hegdesh chayev, and with hegdesh you would be chayev min adam from the Holy Mishnah. Higdish kama or pada kama, you made it holy, and then you redeemed it, it's still connected to the ground. Chayev, the chayev in such case chayev b'peah, and it says then, it talks about someone who makes his fruit hegdesh, and then you go and redeem them. If you redeem them before the gemar, and then the gizbar finishes them off, and then you redeem them, you're patur. So the obligation at the time of gemar malacha, then there's a chiyuv mais on the fruit, whatever. What do you see over here? That if something was hegdesh and then it was redeemed after it came to an odas ma'asra stage, even at the time when it was hegdesh, it was detached, you're chayev. The Torah is only if it was hegdesh at the time of gemar malacha, it was completed through the gizbar, then it's not digon cha, right? It's digon hegdesh. But if you made it hegdesh for one period of time when it was detached before the gemar malacha, that does not pater, because hegdesh you don't have the same rights as opposed to hefka where you have the same rights as the other person. And even low b'shas gemar malacha, you have the same rights. So basically, a different dinim between hefka and hegdesh. Okay, there's no steer from din of hegdesh to Rabbi Yochanan, Shem Rabbi Yanai. It fits in, and we see from here according to Rabbi Yochanan, Shem Rabbi Yanai, the P'tur Hefka is because of a bar Levi, and it's different from Hefka. Hefka is different from Hegdish. Hefka, even for 1 hour, Tolush, Potter from Maaseh. Hegdish, 1 hour, Tolush, doesn't Potter. And that's what we're saying actually earlier on. Chaim argued of Chisda, who said the Hegdish, Shor Achas B'Tolush, would also Potter like Hefka. Now, we understood the Hegdish is not considered you and his hand have the same rights, as opposed to Hefka. Ma bein Hefka, ma bein Hegdish. What difference is there between when something's Hefka or Hegdish? I mean, just like Hefka, everyone has equal rights, because everyone can acquire it equally. No one has ownership on it. Hegdish, everyone's equal. No one's allowed to acquire it, and no one has an ownership on it. Hefka, so the Gemara answers Hefka, Hefka has no owners, so everyone's equal in it. But Hegdish, lo yasidei gizba, there's still a treasurer there, who's in charge, and he's considered like the owner. So therefore the Levi and the owner are not equal in this. Oh, Rav said, I feel like they are balim like Hegdish, even from the owners, it hasn't left him. But we tell the owner, you should be the first person to redeem it. Yeah? Pedayat Rishon, you redeem it first. Right? And we force him to do that. If he doesn't want to, then we let other people redeem it. So we always go to the owner first. Okay? Rav Zeira, Rav Yasser, Shem Rav Elazar, Hazareas, they Hefka Chaim Maasrot. If you sow a field, a Hefka field, you do have to separate Maasrot. Rabbi Yonah Mapik Lishna, he took out the Lashon that something that grows in a Hefka field, Chaim Maasrot, B'shezacha, when someone acquired it afterwards, right? V'stei Hefka v'giduleha, right? He acquired this Hefka field and what came from it. But if he didn't quite acquire it, then he's not Chaim B'maaseh. His Hefka is part of from Maaseh. And that's what Rav Elazar meant. The one who sows a field of Hefka is Chaim if he went and acquired it. V'gidula bin haaretz. We said in the Mishnah that when is that Chaim B'maaseh? When it grows from the ground. This is one of the conditions. Rochia bar'ada ba'ikum Rabbi Yochanan kamein or pitrias. Now these mushrooms, do they have a Maaseh obligation? Amalei Rabbi Yochanan B'shem Rav Sisai. Sevi says asa it's called to Vazaracha. The Chaim B'maaseh is davar shum nizra matzmech, something that the sower grows. Yaz kamein or pitrias. These mushrooms she'enin nizrais matzmechos. They don't grow through sowing, they grow of their own accord. Rabbi Yonah Mapik Lishna, he took out the din, he said these mushrooms are part of a Maaseh V'nizra Aretz Polatatan. They come out of the land, they don't nourish from the land, they're spat out of the land, as it were. Right? Rabbi Yonah holds, you don't need a special pasuk to tell me these mushrooms are not included in Gedulah Min Haaretz. It's Svarah because their main Yanika, their main sustenance comes from the air, therefore they're not considered Gedulah Haaretz. Okay? Rishonim, there are Rishonim who hold these things are not Gedulah Min Haaretz. Okay? Tosfos holds, based on the Bavli and Brachos Daf Mem, they are Gedulah Min Haaretz, but they don't get Yanika, they don't get nourishment from the land. Okay, let's carry on. Now, any food which was food at the beginning and food at the end, even though you guard it to increase in size, and you leave it in the ground so it should grow more, chayav katan v'gadol. You chayav whether it's small or big. If you don't guard it, to improve its size, but you just want, let's say, to guard it, so to get hard, and use it for other purposes, not for eating purposes, then chayav. That's not chayav maasrot at all. Not cotton, not gadol, not if it's small, not if it's big. Right? Eichel gomor is when it's fitting for eating, even if you didn't sow it for eating. You want it, you want to, but here, you want to, let's say, you might want it to harden and use these seeds. So this is again, you just want it to get hard. So would you not be chayav maasrot, not small and not big? Right? You just want it to get hard. You just use these seeds. He says here, it's a question, Lashon Tamiyah. Would you not be chayav? That's how some want to learn. Most people leave it for it to get hard. They use it for other purposes or for spices. It's still Eichel Gomor, although from the beginning you want it to get hard. Alright, let's see. So Rav Ivi Shem Lakish, He says, Zu, this one of this deal, because the Mishnah is Lahaisim Dimmer Gamliel. So Tanina and Samar Gamliel, tomorrows, which are these sort of berries, right? The beginning of the growth of the givol of these species, you get a sort of berry like a date of some kind. Some sort of berry, shall silton of the fenugreek, right? And shall chardal of mustard, shall put lavan, chayiv maasrot, shall chayiv maasrot. Now, even though these things are not so important for eating, I mean, sometimes people eat them. You sow the fenugreek from the beginning for seeds. You don't really want to eat the whole thing. But the Tan of our Mishnah holds that since they're not choshev for eating, you're not chayiv unless you sowed it in order to eat the berries. If you sowed it just to get hard, then there's no chiyuv maasrot in such a case. And that's what the Mishnah means. It says if you guard it to increase in size as food, right? If you're guarding it, when you don't guard it for food, then you're potter. But if it's a food, if it is a food, even if you guard it not to increase in size, you sow it to get hard, you're still chayiv maasrot if you decided to gather it for food when it was soft. So you understand? So if it's a food, then you will be chayiv maasrot. Okay? Whereas these other things, it depends what your kavanah was. Now, so we're saying that what? The dirk of our Mishnah is coming to go against Rav Gamliel. So see again, so the dirk we said was to go against Rav Gamliel. Rav Gamliel said these berries are chayiv maasrot, though you really don't intend to eat them at all, but sometimes someone might eat them. So the Gemara argues on that Hesber Ravimi that we're coming to go against Rav Gamliel. Because these are fitting, tiny, slightly possible to be eaten. Rav Gamliel machayev, Rav Gamliel will machayev maasrot, even if you just sow them for seed. Mayatu, that's the case, afilu yarkan, even if the leaves, even the leaves should be there for chayev maasrot when you sow the plants for seeds. Well, I mean, the leaves are also fitting slightly to be eaten. Rav Gamliel never obligated maasrot on the leaves, right? He only said it on these berries. And he says, Rav Gamliel over, Rav Gamliel holds these berries, chashuves hein la'echel. They are eligible as food in their own right, right? Even without person thinking about eating them. And if you're chayiv maasrot, even if you sow it for seed. Rabbanan Amri, the Rabbanan hold, ein chashuves la'echel. No, these berries are not really important to eat in their own right. A vegetable of these minim, okay, it's not choshev food in its own right until you sow it in order to eat it. And other types of seeds as well. Rav Gamliel holds, although it's slightly edible, it's not choshev food in its own right. Only if you sowed it with intention to eat it, but not if you sowed it for seed. So the dirk of the Mishnah, anything you guard not to increase in size is potter from maasrot, whether it's small or big. He says that's according to everyone. According to Gamliel, we're excluding these berries of other minim. According to Chachamim, we're excluding these berries of fenugreek and mustard, and not like Ravimi who wanted to say the Mishnah argued on Gamliel. Well, now Rav Yossi brings a right to what he said. Well, another proof that our Mishnah can even be like Rav Gamliel. Min Adon Tani, we learned in a brayso. Rav Yeshua, Miyamai levilani libi, Laima le'adam. I never said to someone, "Tel kait lechan t'may shel tiltem shel cham lavan." Go and cover yourself your berries of fenugreek, etc., and mustard, or shleik, and cook them in a patrim and a maasrot. Cook them and you can eat them without taking maasrot. Because he wasn't sure, maybe they had maasrot like Rav Gamliel, and he sure wasn't sure his halach was like him, and he's an individual, maybe the halach was not like him. Rabbi Yehuda wouldn't put a stamp Mishnah like him if he's an individual. It must be the dirk of the Mishnah is agreed even according to Rav Gamliel. And he still obligates the berries with maasrot when you sow it for seed, because he held they're considered a food in their own right. And he wasn't sure if they're considered a food, a choshev food like Gamliel, or maybe it's not considered a eichel choshev like the Chachamim. And the Gemara brings a brayso which discusses this, the second side of the Mishnah. Tani choshev chilasa eichel. They ain't so eichel. It was food at the beginning, but not food at the end. It's chayiv at the beginning and part at the end. Ma'izlach, what are you including with this? Kadol Tani, like we learned. Hamekayim, Malaya. You have a bed. It's like a flower bed. Yeah?
This is a castor plant for seeds.
Castor plant.
Like castor oil, yeah.
Karachroya lezera, yeah, castor plant. I thought sometimes we used to say Achroya was boxwood. I don't know if that's the same thing as castor plant. I don't know. So Hamekayim Malaya, Shalachroya lezera, you keep this sort of castor plant patch. You should get hard like wood. You use the seeds. Bad ladata, you are insignificant compared to mankind. No one will do that. Right? Therefore, although your intention is for seed, but the name of food is still on this. The vegetables and the roots. And it's Chaim Meiser. But if you keep kalachin yechidim, like single stalks, for sowing, for seed, lo bat ladata, you are not insignificant. There are people that will keep sort of single stalks for this. So the vegetables and the roots are not considered oichel, part of a master. Rabbi Yoda said, "V'hu the din of the Reish of the Brisa that this thing, if you keep it for zera, is Chaim Meiser. That's only sheniket yorok. You cut it when it was soft and fitting to eat. However, lo liket yorok, if you didn't cut it when it was soft as a vegetable, only after it became hard, then we don't say that because are we going to say eitzim chayavim b'maisros that wood is Chaim Meiser? We can't say that. So it must be once it's become hard as wood, then it's definitely potter from masa. So basically, this achraya, you have a whole patch of it, and you're keeping it for zera. Your das is botel. It's like something which was food in the beginning and is not food at the end. If it's not food at the beginning but it's food at the end, you're not chayav until it becomes food. What are we including with this? Like we learned elsewhere. When does fruit get an obligation in Masechet? In the figs, when it's a level of development which we will come to. The Mishnah is counting many things from Peres Ilan. When are they fitting to eat? And most Peres Ilan, an example of something which is not eaten at the beginning, is eaten at the end, right? And you're not Chaim Meiser until it reaches that food stage later on.
It's just not even Talmud.
Is what?
It's not even Talmud.
No. Okay. Now, anything which is not fitting to eat until a certain level in its development, we said that then it's Chaim, and the Onis Maestros will be Chaim Meiser when it reaches that stage. When is that stage with many of the different fruit trees? So when does that stage come? So this is when they become boichel. This is the beginning ripening session of the fig. Okay? Va'anavim, and when it comes to the grapes, then Rabaushim, which we'll see what they are in due course, they're types of bad grapes, Mishib Ishu, when they become Ba'usha, the beginning of the ripening of the process of the grapes. Ha'oig v'hatutim Mishiadibu. Oig was always sumac, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Sumac and the sort of cherries, mulberries, Mishiadibu, when they get a reddish tinge. Is used for tanning. It's got bunches of vines and they get eaten. And anything which is very red and it's ripening and green before it's ripe. When they reach that red stage, they start going red. That's the beginning of their ripening. I remind you of the pomegranates Masu, when the seeds sort of soften up in the hands of the person who's holding it. Hatamarim, the dates, they sort of open up with various cracks, just like chametz opens up with cracks when they start ripening. Hafasakin, the peaches, gidim, you find sort of red threads within them. The walnuts, magura, when the seed separates from the shell, it's like stored in a storehouse. The nuts and the almonds, when they form a klippa, some sort of inner shell close to the pit. Haruvin, the carrots, kidu, when they become sort of dotted, they look like you've got black dots on them. All fruit which is black, kidu, when they have these dots. Agasim, of the pears, the sort of small apples which are like gallnuts. Aprishin, machazaradin, which are sort of types of apples that grow in the forest. Mishiakrichu, when they reach a stage, shiakrichu, they have sort of holes in them of some kind. Just a second. Shiakrichu. They open up, they're covered with hairs when they're small. They start growing, you have bald patches from the hairs that have fallen out. Okay, so it's when they become bald. That applies to all white things. Hatiltam, which is like chilba, with a fenugreek. Mishatitzmach hatzvor v'azesim, mishatitzmach rather, when it all grows, and the grain and the olives, the tzvor v'azesim, mishiach nisu shlish, when it grows a third. Okay? Bichelu, Ruchir Bava, he said, Chaisa, it like grew, the grain grew. Come on the table, like we said in Masechet. The Gam Nafsham Bacharabi, the soul of the wicked kings was like heavy before Hashem, as it were. He couldn't take them. Something which you just haven't got patience for is considered heavy in your eyes. Right? It's not this gadol. Okay. Rav Abba by Yaakov Shem Rabbi Yochanan, Mishyadimu Pihem, when the end of it goes a bit red. Kala Ta'enim Pihem Adimois. And do you think all figs? There are figs where they never go red. So what are you going to do with that? They're not everything goes red. So what's his answer? Let's take one fig from the tree and leave it. In Bashla, if it ripened and became fitting sweet, within 24 hours, Chayavos, you are chayav on the figs in the tree with Masechet, and if not, P'toros they are possible. Anavim, Va'avoshin, V'shiam which is when these grapes go a bit bad. Rav Yerushalmi Maasrot Daf, Be'isha, it's called Be'isha. Rav Ivo Bar Nagri, Ratanchum Bar Ilai, B'shem Rav Nachum Bar Simai, V'usha Tehei Chansana Shanahen Neres V'machutz. That the level of ripening, in its process, some of the shells soften up around the grape. They become see-through because of all the juice within the grape. And then the pips appear to be outside. Rabbi Yochanan said, Rechiv Havina al Kisvei de Sava. I was riding on my grandfather's shoulders. The Shames Kalen, I heard the voice of Shimon Lazar Yosef Masnei, who was teaching the following day. And he said, Machnisin, you're allowed to gather on Shabbos the pips of a melon of some kind which have fallen on the floors to take them out of the house. You can't start gathering the melon seeds, from the floor. What's the difference between different types of seeds? The ones of the melon are fitting to eat, so you can gather them. Whereas is Lizriya, therefore sowing, so you can't gather it, because we know you can't gather it for eating. In my mad came, if you're going to tell me you're allowed to gather the seeds of the melon from the ground, this is Muhammad is a karka b'Shabbos. You'll end up sweeping the floor on Shabbos. Okay, we'll stop here, Rabbi Sai.